One day, I was leaving work for lunch, and I looked at my cell phone, and I had a missed message. It was from my friend Jason's brother. He told me to call him. So I called him right back. He told me, "You need to come to the hospital right away. Jason's going to be taken off life support, and we don't know how long he'll have to live after that." I immediately went into my car, went to the dining facility, saw my NCOIC, and told him, "My friend Jason is going to be taken off life support, and I don't know how long he'll have left to live." He told me, "Don't worry about leave. Don't worry about work. Just go. We'll take care of everything later on. Just go." So I left. It's about a 15-minute drive from the base to the hospital, and the only thing that was going through my head was, did they take him off life support? Is he still alive? Am I too late? Luckily, when I got there, I saw his brother, and he told me, "You came just in time. We were just about to take him off life support. They took us out of the emergency room, and they closed the door, shut the blinds. They took out the tube that was helping him breathe on his own, and they let us back in. And for a little bit, it looked like he was getting better, that his vitals were getting stronger, he was able to breathe on his own. But a few days later, I was standing next to him by the bed, and the nurse comes in. His vitals were going down. I held his hand, and I watched him take a deep breath. And like a sigh, he never took another one. And he died. Jason wasn't just a friend to me. He wasn't just somebody that I enjoyed being with. He was my boyfriend. I had just watched him die. This was the man who was supposed to meet my parents. This was the man who, on my birthday, intended to make me a red velvet cake. And he was no longer with me. He was in the hospital for about a month. I was going from work to the hospital. In the beginning, he was just there for pneumonia. They told us, he'll get better, he'll be fine. So I would come visit, and he'd be tired. He'd be a little woozy because of the medication they were giving him. But then eventually, his health started declining. And there was once where I walked in, and he was trying to get out of bed so that he can go to the bathroom. And he couldn't walk. So a nurse had to come in to help him. And when he got back, he told me he was so ashamed because he couldn't go to the bathroom by himself. He needed help. And from there, it just went downhill. He eventually wouldn't be able to move. He wouldn't be able to squeeze my hands when I held it. Then he wouldn't be able to talk. And most of the time, he wasn't even awake. But when he passed, his brother looked at me and he said, "Wow, you're dealing with this really well. I'm really amazed." But in actuality, I wasn't. I was holding on to that grief inside and not letting anybody know that my insides were tearing apart. But I just didn't tell anybody. I didn't talk about it. At the time, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was still in effect. So the idea of me going to mental health to talk to somebody to help me out didn't seem like an option because I'd have to lie. I'd have to say, "Oh, my friend was in the hospital and I saw him pass away. But he's not my friend. He wasn't just a friend. He wasn't just somebody that I met. He's my boyfriend, and I didn't want to tarnish the memories that I had of him. I didn't want to tarnish the memory of seeing that red velvet cake, eating it, and thinking, why does this taste a little bit like cornbread? So I didn't tell anybody, and I still went to work. I'd go to work, I'd smile. I'd do my job, do my little dance I seem to do all the time at work. Kept on going, went on with my life. Eventually, Don't Ask, Don't Tell would be repealed. But I still didn't talk about the grief I had. I remember there was a time where I went into my closet, was looking for a pair of pants, and then I tried on a pair and burst out crying because I had forgotten that I kept a pair of his pants to remember him by. But I kept that grief inside and still didn't tell anybody because I got in the habit. I got in the habit of not talking to anybody. I got in the habit of keeping everything bottled up because I was afraid back then. The idea of getting kicked out of the military because of my sexual preference was a very real thought because I knew two people who were under investigation, and I knew one person who was in the process of being kicked out of the military. So the fear that I would get kicked out was very strong for me, so I kept it inside and just went on with my life. A few years later, I was asked to do Storytellers. I automatically said yes. And then right after I said yes, I was thinking, what am I doing? I can't do this. I'm about to express my grief, talk to people. I'm going to force myself to talk to people about what happened. But I needed to do it because I needed to talk to people. I needed to express my grief. I needed to let people know what happened because I needed to grieve. When I left work, a coworker saw that I was very upset, and he asked, "What's wrong?" And I told him about Jason. I told him about him passing away. I told him that I was going to do Storytellers. And he told me, if you need any help, if you need somebody to talk to, I'll be there for you. And I burst out crying when I got to my car because I didn't realize for all these years I had been waiting for somebody to say, "I'll be there for you," that you could cry on my shoulder. Thank you.